Yeah, that sounds like.
Convene open session. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent meditation? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
I recommend that minutes related to the matter of security remain sealed.
So moved.
Second. There's a recommendation and a second that the minutes related to the matter of security remain sealed. Those in favor? Any opposed? Recusals or abstentions? No. Thank you very much. That was unanimous.
I recommend that minutes relating to the privacy of students and their records, approval of home instruction requests remain sealed.
So moved.
Second. There's been a second and a motion and a second to recommend that the minutes relating to the privacy of students' their records remain sealed. Those in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions or recusals? Thank you very much. That was unanimous.
I recommend that minutes pertaining to collective bargaining, NEA Charahoe contract negotiation update remain sealed until such time as an agreement has been reached.
So moved. Thank you, Ms. LaGore. There's been a motion by Catherine Juicy, a second by Mr. LaGore to let the minutes pertaining to collective bargaining remain sealed until such a time as an agreement has been reached. Those in favor? Any opposition? Recusal? Abstention?
Recusal.
Thank you. One recusal, Mr. Luzon.
I recommend that minutes pertaining to collective bargaining, NEA ESP contract negotiation update remain sealed until such time as an agreement has been reached.
So moved. Thank you. There's been a motion and a second to recommend the minutes pertaining to collective bargaining, ESP contract negotiations remain sealed until such a time as an agreement has been reached. But those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? Mr. Day. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Please join me.
Oh, wait a minute. Disclosure.
Oh,
Executive
sorry.
session votes. Catherine, you're on.
Catherine,
Catherine.
Executive session vote. So we had executive session minutes of February 8th, 2022, pre-deprivation non-renewals approved by Abbott, Chambers Day, Juicy, Liguori, Luzon, Lyle, McAllister, Reynolds, and Spears. Executive session minutes February 8th, 2022, RGB update approved by Abbott, Chambers Day, Juicy, Liguori, Luzon, Lyle, McAllister, Reynolds, and Spears. Then we had executive session minutes February 8th, home instruction approvals approved by Abbott, Chambers Day, Juicy, Liguori, Luzon, Lyle, McAllister, Reynolds, and Spears. Home instruction request for this evening approved by Abbott, Chambers Day, Juicy, Liguori, Luzon, Lyle, McAllister, Reynolds, and Spears. And then return to open session approved by Abbott, Chambers, Juicy, Lagori, Lyle, McAllister, Reynolds, and Spears. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Giusti. Now
Okay.
it's recognition.
Now please join me in congratulating the following students. Julianne Manlove had the winning entry in the Wright, Rhode Island competition. Charahoe instigators under the guidance of Rebecca Burns. They have now written winning stories for the Wright, Rhode Island competition for 6 out of 6 years. Reagan Clark and Maya Card represented Charahoe High School at the Rhode Island Shakespeare competition. Wrestlers Wade Husing, 120 pounds, Corbin Mariah, 195 pounds, and Gary Gardner, 220 pounds, all qualified for New England's after finishing in the top 3 of their weight class. Erin Van Hoosen earned all-state honors awarded to athletes finishing in the top 3 in the events in the 3,000 and beat the existing Charahoe record by 8 seconds. She was 3rd in the 3,000 and 5th in the 1,000 in the girls' indoor track and field state championship. She has already set school records for the 1,500 and the 1,000 earlier in the season, and now she has qualified for the New England Championship. Margaret Whedon earned all-state honors in the high jump and qualified for the New Englands. Rico Thompson took 4th place in the shot put and qualified for New England's. Joe Golis placed 5th in the 600 and the boys' indoor track and field state championship and qualified for the New England's. The 4x800 relay team, Joe Golis, Eli Sposato, Cole Wren, and Will Steer finished 6th at the boys' indoor track and field state championship and qualified for New England's. Congratulations to all.
Yay. Good job. Very nice. Clap in person. Give an update on that. Now we're in the times from the public who wish to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Could please come forward to the mic, introduce yourselves, and state your question or reason why you're here. Does anyone like to come forward? Okay, well, thank you very much. You can move on to the next item, which is business. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, hey, Goldie.
Hello. I want to talk about why we're paying.
Goldie, could you introduce yourself? I know
Goldie
you.
Williams from Richmond.
Thank you.
I want to know why we're paying higher the budget if we went down 10% reading proficiency in reading and math, according to U.S. News. According to Nietzsche, it was 15% in proficiency in math and English. We shouldn't be having to pay more. We shouldn't be paying for it to be our kids to be dumbed down with the CRT, with this gender fluidity, gender anything, gender dysphoria. They should be taught regular subjects, not the junk to dumb our kids down and indoctrinate our kids. Also, it should be that we shouldn't be flying to California at the Cala program so their grades go down, because California is the worst school district system in the world. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then I guess we can move on. Thank you very much. Okay.
The first item is public forum protocol. This item was requested by George Abbott, and John Anderson will be here to discuss the legal opinion, and you have to receive the attached Rhode Island General Law 42-46-6 open meetings.
Good evening, everyone. You have a copy in front of you of Rhode Island General Laws 42-4-6. If you look down at the bottom of the front page at subsection B, it lays out exactly what can and can't happen during public forum periods. As it states, there's nothing in the Open Meetings Act that prohibits any member of the school committee, if you so choose, to respond to something that is said by the public. That is your decision as an elected official, whether you wish to respond to something that was said by a member of the public. On the other hand, you can't vote on anything. So if you want to say that's a great idea, or we should look at this further, or I disagree with you, you can say that. but you can't vote on anything. What you can do is you can ask the chair to say, we talk about that at another meeting, and actually you have that part of your agenda already where you can add items to future agendas, but you can't vote. The only exception for voting is in the event of an emergency. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've had one, and it was a school that felt they had to have a board vote to close for COVID. And they had a school committee meeting scheduled already the day the governor announced, and they wanted to put it on the agenda. And I actually called the Attorney General's office. And the Attorney General's office said, yeah, that's okay. You can talk about COVID tonight. But that's the type of emergency that we're talking about. Sometimes people try to say, it'll be an emergency if we can't go on the field trip. Poor planning is not an emergency. There is nothing, I want to make it clear, that requires anybody or the body as a whole to respond. You can do what you just did previously. A speaker spoke. She gave her opinions. You chose not to respond. You also don't have to have public forum. There's nothing in the Open Meetings Act. You choose to have public forum in Charahoe. There's nothing in the Open Meetings Act that requires you to have a public forum. Does anybody have any questions?
We've got lots of questions here. Okay, we'll start with Catherine, and then we'll go down the line. Catherine, do you have the floor?
Right now, it also says that public forum is 30 minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just share that one of the reasons I don't think it's a good idea to have a lot of robust back and forth conversation is now you're eating up the time of the other people
Sure.
who are standing in line and want to talk. As it is, we're timing people and limiting them to 2 or 3 minutes. I would not want to see our half an hour get taken up by us taking 12 of us to respond to a speaker. I think that is when we put something on the agenda. So just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay, Donna?
Yeah, John, I really appreciate your bringing this forward because there were times when I felt that we were inhibited from saying anything when misinformation was going out there. And there would have been a lot of opportunity for misinformation. To Catherine's point, however, I would suggest that if we respond, that it not be a back and forth in any way from the audience that we're responding to, because we do have to limit the time. And if we take up that time, it's not going to be good. But I feel really comfortable now knowing that we can respond because I didn't think we could.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mr. Luzon and then Mr. Day.
Yeah, it's been stated in the past that we don't give the citizens the right to speak. Well, I think that is really far from the truth. We do have public forum. We can waive the time requirement on public forum to extend it longer. When I was the chair and prior to me being the chair and people after me, we respected the fact that public forum was for the taxpayers to speak. It wasn't time for us. We get plenty of time to sit up here and pontificate. And the citizens and taxpayers still have every agenda item they're allowed to speak on. I just wanted to throw that in there, other than the rules of conduct, because I know the citizens get plenty of chance to speak. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Day?
Yes, John, I looked up our public policy, public forum policy, and there's 3 things that it says here. Each citizen who makes a public statement is responsible to be accurate, present the facts and not gossip, present information based on personal knowledge, not hearsay. So I don't think this has been followed by the public. The other question I have is that in this policy, it states that the public will have 5 minutes to speak. Our rules of conduct contradict that.
Yeah,
You
Would our policy oversee the rules of conduct?
I brought that to your attention.
And in answer to your question, no, they are both policies. Your rules of conduct is a policy. It just happens to only apply to 12 people.
Well,
Your public comment is a policy that needs to be reconciled. And I would suggest that you put that on the agenda for a future meeting.
Right.
As to how you wish to handle it.
So, but right now, you're saying I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but I couldn't find rules of conduct anywhere in the policy book under anything, so I
And it
don't.
should be. It should be.
But if it's not, then
But it should be in our policy manual, because the rules of conduct are voted on by the school committee. They are binding. So it should be in there.
Right.
Some districts you call them the rules of conduct, other districts call them their bylaws. And they are binding on the school committee until the school committee chooses to change them. So they're the same as a policy. They're a policy for the school committee.
so what? I'm a little confused
that we
as
need
to
to
whether
make
it's
sure that it's in our
5
policy.
minutes or whether it's 2 to 4 minutes.
And I think that I will defer to the chair in the short run. In the long run, you need, and when I mean the long run, maybe the next meeting,
The next meeting.
you need to rectify that inconsistency. And you're right to point it out.
It's a good point, Bill, though.
I respect you as an individual, as a lawyer, John, so
Right, and
I'm not going to debate you.
Right, and I'm going to tell you that I'm not going to answer it because, I give advice to the school committee. I don't tell the school committee what to do. You have pointed out a problem. The problem needs to be fixed. And my recommendation is you fix it at your next meeting, one way or the other, or split the difference.
We'll split it. Any other questions for Mr. Anderson? He came all the way here to be with us. George, do you have any questions for John?
No. I brought this up because I was on Facebook and someone put a post up that said the rules in Westerly as they stood were challenged with the Attorney General, and then they were changed as a result of Attorney General's opinion.
And I will simply say, I don't represent Westerly, so I'm not familiar with what happened in Westerly. Obviously, with your rules of conduct, you have to treat people fairly. You can't say, oh, we're only going to let the people who like vanilla ice cream speak. If you like raspberry sherbet, you can't speak. You've got to be fair in terms of who you allow to speak. This is America, and people have different points of views that they wish to express to their point of view. You don't have to agree with their point of view, but you need to consider their point of view.
That's it.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Anderson. Thank you for coming. I know it was a trip for you.
The next item is equal distribution of student activity funds. This item was requested.
I'm sorry, I think I can help Mr. Abbott out here.
It's not, no. Wait,
No, you
No,
go on.
no.
I was gonna just speak to the public
No.
forum policy
Is she
that
allowed to do that?
Mr. Abbott had, between him and Mr. Anderson, didn't know how Westerly came about that. I mean, or I can speak to you afterwards.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I could go with that if they don't seem.
Yes, Ms. Luzon.
Madam Chair, what I've seen for about a year now is we bend over backwards to accommodate everybody. It's my turn to speak. To accommodate everybody. And you have a certain amount of time to get up there and say who you are. But once we've moved on in the agenda, we officially have moved on.
Miss Chambers.
And just to add to Mr. Luzon's comment, you have to be recognized by the chair in order to get to the podium and speak. You cannot just speak because you choose to speak. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. Did you tell?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yep.
Mr. Day, this was requested by you with the student activities fund. Sorry, we were interrupted. Excuse me, please.
SAF account, this has been a long-standing issue of mine. I brought it up, Donna, I think Craig might have been here too, and I brought it up a few times before the previous school committee meetings, but there is a serious, what I consider is a very serious inequity of funds at the middle school. And I think you all got a copy of the SAF account as of 2/28. And I'd like to point out SAF Blue Team Middle School, $573.59. SAF Orange Team, $4,926.30. The Gold Team, $4,008.93. And the Red Team, $24.71. We don't have any control over the SAF account, just so everybody understands that. This is, the school committee has no control whatsoever. That's been determined many years ago. But I'm having a problem understanding if two teams have this kind of money, 7th and 8th grade combined teams, which is what they are, right? Have that kind of money to spend. Why is the blue team and the red team being shortchanged with things that these other two teams would be getting with this extra money? Something needs a change over there. This should be that group's money combined, whether you're red, green, blue, or polka dotted. I don't know if anybody had any children go through this system that maybe was on the red team, and when the red team didn't have the same perks, if for lack of a better terminology, than the other teams had. I mean, it certainly, if I was in that situation and I knew about it, it would have been addressed and straightened out a long time ago. So, this is not right. We're supposed to be treating everybody equally, and I'm surprised that I haven't got this resolved in previous years, and I'm hoping that maybe this school committee will take the steps forward to find a way that the 7th and 8th graders, regardless of what color team they're on, would all get the same perks, if you want to use that terminology.
I think I have two. Karen,
I
you
think
might
Ned
want
can
Ned
go
to
first.
speak first.
Ned
Okay.
can go first.
Okay, so Ned, and then we'll have Karen and Gary. Ned, you can speak to the funds.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we as a result of the last meeting in the inquiry, I sat down with the principal of the middle school as well as the principal of the high school to go through the student activity funds. What we found, and you're correct, Mr. Day, it's most pronounced in the blue, orange, gold, and red teams. What we found out, however, is part of this has to do with the pandemic situation, in that the Christmas Carol is something that each of those classes attend. And what happened is I believe it's the blue team and the red team attended. They were able to go to Trinity Rep. And then after COVID hit, that suspended the orange team and the gold team from being able to participate. So they're working on, what's going to be the equivalent. I don't know that those particular teams are going to get to because of the duration we've had, but that's specific to this situation. I can't say what's happened in the past if there was, some inequity before, but with these numbers in particular, we sat down with Mr. Zenyan and went through that piece.
Can you want to have a follow-up, and then we'll get
Either
to
way.
Karen. Go ahead. Mr. Day, you have a follow-up.
Well, this has been an ongoing problem. Like I said, I brought this up at least a couple times in prior school committee. It's been an ongoing problem. I've heard rumors that it's 20 years or longer that this inequity has been out there. So they can spin it any way they want over there, but I don't understand why this fundraising is not class-wide instead of team-wise.
Okay.
You know, that would make the most sense to me, that look, if you're in this group here, this group of four teams, that any money you raise goes into the pot for everybody involved in that 7th and 8th grade group. So I'll shut up now.
Go ahead, Karen.
I was just going to ask, is this a result of fundraising and then not spending the money within the year? Or within the 2 year, if it's a 2-year cycle, the 2-year loop?
So specific to these, and this is where the greatest disparity is. Clearly in this case, that group of students did not enjoy the same thing that the other group of students enjoyed. But that's based on the structure of attending an in-person event. There are also PTO investments. That was one of the things Principal Zenman shared with us, that are typically $5 per student per year, typically towards trips and that sort of thing. Same kind of thing that paused. But to Mr. Day's point, we do, as a district, have a practice of allocating resources per student. I do know that relative to that attendance, it may be some differences in the number of kids in each team, that sort of thing. But that said, both principals were receptive to looking at how it works out per student who's participating in an activity. So I don't think there's going to be any resistance from administration on being equitable, to your point. But duly noted, it's something we are going to keep an eye on. We are going to keep an eye on the expenses. We also asked to work with the high school and take a look at what's going on with some of the classes that have graduated and what their plans are. It's a significant amount of money that's stored up there.
Gary? Mr. Lagori? Sorry.
Yeah, so Bill, I think you raise an interesting point. I'm not sure I see it from the exact same angle. I feel like Ned's explanation for the different colored teams actually makes perfect sense. And in fact, it's the opposite of what your concern was. You were concerned that some had a lot more to spend on things when in fact, those with less got to spend it. But I guess to me, it's a bigger question, and I don't know this answer. How do they accumulate funds in the first place? Is it strictly from fundraising, or is there an allocation? And maybe we don't know that right now.
So typically the funds will be donated or fundraised, one of the two. What Mr. Zenyan explained is when it comes to some of the field trips and that sort of thing, because of the way we're supposed to handle those, parents can contribute and say, you know what, I don't want anybody not to go. I'll put money in, that way everybody can go. Or we don't have it.
Everyone gets to go.
Everyone
Right,
gets
so I guess that brings up my second point is, so looking through this list, there are the grade-specific line items, and then there's everything else, which looks like mainly lots of after-school things, right?
Yeah.
So I think, if I understand Bill's concern, which I actually do agree with, I would have to say that the grade specifics should all have a pretty even amount of opportunity to spend money.
Yeah.
Right. And I get it. You can just apply some random distribution in a given year. One class could have a stronger parent group and not. But maybe there's an opportunity by grade to aggregate money so that every class. On the other hand, I'm just looking down the same list Bill is, and the drama club has $11,000 and the foreign language club has $40. I don't know what to say. They're after school clubs that raise their own funds, and one did a great job and one didn't. I'd feel terrible if my kid was in the drama or the foreign language club, but I'm not sure it's needs to be a concern of this body what the after school clubs are doing with their money or raising their money.
Yeah, and just as a side note, it's just consistent. You can see it through the industries. The drama club is another thing that got paused.
And
actually, there's a
So they couldn't
scholarship.
spend the money.
They also raise it for a scholarship. The
And they
drama club raises money for a scholarship, so that money probably will be coming out for a scholarship at the end of the year.
And they receive it, like the performances are able to fundraise when they use that ticket funding. But to to Bill's point, I've had conversations with both the middle school and the high school, and we're in a complete agreement that it needs to be equally distributed. While there's not necessarily like a school committee policy, there's a best practice around student activity funds, which we're working on with the principals to sort of first unpack all of the history of it so that we're clear about it, and then create those expectations. One being that, to the point, is that it's a grade wide, right? So there's no opportunity afforded to one team over another, that the opportunities are the same. And it can't be, because a parent group is more dedicated to one team over another, that the opportunities are equally distributed. So that's going to be a focus of the best practice. And Mr. Jenny and both Ms. Boz were absolutely agreeable to that. The high school, to Mr. Draper's point around the class gifts, typically what you see is oftentimes a graduating class, there can be a gift to the class. Sometimes it's a specific item. We've had different requests around the paving of the bowl, making that a permanent parking space, as an example, an electric sign in front of the high schools. And you'll probably see around high schools, it'll say gift of class of, and there's multiple classes, because you ask for an item, and then every class will donate whatever's remaining to the previous class as a gift back to the high school. That's another opportunity for us to begin to think through how to mitigate not having these funds exist, because they really should be spent on the students that are fundraised for them.
Mr. Zan, no, Ms. Luzon, you had your hand raised.
Ned, I would hope that we only have roughly 3.5 months, and I would hope that Orange and Gold either expend the money on those students or figure something out. As far as the drama club, just remember one thing: that they'll pursue a play, they'll lease the rights to that play. Some of those leases cost like $8,000.
I'm not thinking any one club. Just
No,
saying
I'm
they
just
happen to be next to each other.
I'm just putting things in
11,000
context. That's all.
Costumes.
Mr.
You
Day.
name it.
Follow up?
One more quick note, which if this money doesn't get spent, it doesn't move on to the high school with this group of kids. So the sixth graders coming into the fold next year will be, if we don't combine all of this and get it squared away before next year, the kids that will be coming in on the Orange team, they'll be dollars and dollars ahead of the other kids there. So I think this really needs to be flushed out before next school year, because the money that these 7th and 8th graders raise is going to stay in the middle school, and they're not even going to have a benefit of utilizing that towards their graduation 4 years from now. So I appreciate the effort going forward, hopefully.
Ms. Chambers?
Yeah, this may have been said, but I would like to request a report back of how this is resolved, how the principals are planning to resolve this, because it is a concern to be resolved before the end of the school year.
Thank you. Good idea. Yes, that's good. Yeah, any public comment on that? Okay, I'm going to ask before we move on. Okay. And that's good.
The next item is for the FY23 budget adjustments to
No, the calendar.
I apologize, I jumped.
That's good.
Approval of the 2022-2023 school calendar. We have been informed that the state will allow 1 day of PD that will count towards the required 180 days that can be asynchronous. This day on the calendar will be December 5th. Any additional PD days will not be counted in the 180-day requirement, which means the calendar would be extended in June to accommodate the additional PD days. Those days are noted in orange in your calendar. As we have to close school on primary and election days, this has made it necessary for students to begin prior to Labor Day, and I am recommending approval of the 2022-2023 school calendar as submitted.
So moved.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second to approve the 2022-2023 school calendar. Donna, seconded.
Yeah.
And so now we're going to open this up for discussion or questions. Yes, Ms. Luzon.
So can you elaborate what this is us choosing this, or this was the state kind of directing?
Great question. So this year in the school calendar, there are 5 state PD days that are asynchronous that count towards the 180 days. The state walked back the 5 and said they would allow up to 1.
Okay.
And it was the date, they would recommend dates based on, and typically what you see is they recommend dates based on I work directly with Providence, but they said we could select our own date. And I work very closely with the South County Superintendent. We talked at length about the school calendar and have agreed upon the majority of, many of us decided to use like the district PD days, even across the state around election, because we've already had students out of the building. So it wasn't an additional day we would have to worry about for students to have to add on in June. And we've all agreed. I think North Kingstown's the only one that is waiting about their February break, where the rest of us have gone with the full February break, and we have the exact same April break.
So
We beat them in hockey tonight, they won't be with us.
Say it again.
Assuming we beat them in hockey tonight, they won't.
And no,
be
that's
with us.
South Kingstown. North Kingstown is the one that hasn't made their official final
Sorry.
calendar yet.
So the DPD is District Professional Development. We only have to do 3 plus the additional state of 1.
Yep, because that's
Okay.
already a school day.
All right, thank you.
Catherine?
Was there any discussion about pushing the end date later into June and starting after Labor Day? And I only bring that up because the community had suggested in the past that they really wanted to wait until after Labor Day to start school. This is the December break is short this year, for the kids. And I know that pushing it into June, we always run the risk of snow days, right? But we have less of those now because we have technology. So I'm just wondering if there's an appetite among the committee to maybe push it back till after Labor Day. I know a lot of families go away on Labor Day. I think we might see a high rate of absenteeism those couple of days. So I'm not sure if that was a discussion or not.
So clarification, we have not received guidance from RIDE if distance learning days will be allowed for inclement weather. So we asked for that information back in January and February, and the commissioner, I want to say, was on a call 2 weeks ago, and we requested it. They said they're updating it. They received feedback across the state that it was not something that a majority of what they heard, who voiced their opinions, wanted us to continue to use. So they could not tell us if that would be allowed. So because of that, we kept it sort of safe, knowing that we would have to close school and add those days.
Also, we have to have seniors in
Yep.
a required amount of days. We are locked into URI. I have no extra time for seniors to move that graduation date. That was the problem.
All
One
right.
of the problems.
And
One of them.
and that all makes
Yeah.
sense. Interesting, because RIDE was really pushing that inclement weather plan like really hard. So I'm surprised.
They may.
I'm not
We
surprised
don't
they're
know how
walking
many
with that.
days, if they'll do it. They're saying that they're updating their guidance and that it'll be forthcoming.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, Catherine asked, as far as does anyone have any other, I know you put that out there, but,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds though like seniors would be up
okay.
in trouble.
And that
Okay, I
would
just
push
wanted to
us
make-
to beyond the 20th.
Well, yeah, because you're already up to that Thursday, then this,
Mhm.
yeah, so, because of that weekend. Donna and then Mr.
Yeah, no,
Gordon.
I just wanted to say, I think that was a concession on RIDE's part, just to allow us to figure a professional learning day for counting toward the 181 days. So, that's a step in the right direction as far as I'm concerned, that they're willing to modify the calendar based on the fact that we do have the technology in place for the kids on a professional development day for them to be in school. Yeah. That's a step.
Mr. LaGori?
First, I just have a comment. So I've been very happy with my children's education here and every other place I've lived. However, I've never found days added on at the end of the year to be worth anybody's time.
I know.
And I'm shocked that RIDE is contemplating.
Yeah.
Right, if they're thinking the DL days aren't effective, I believe the add-ons in June are even less effective. That's just my comment. My question, however, is for Donna about, I didn't understand the graduation piece? I know we're locked, you said we're locked
The
into
second
URI.
Friday in URI.
So how does that impact the
Because
calendar?
seniors have to be in school so many days.
Then they wouldn't be officially
There would not
graduated.
be enough time if we started
But
after
isn't that
Labor
just
Day.
ceremonial, that event? That's not an official.
We lock in that
deferment of
date.
the-
We're
it's not-
guaranteed that date. It's the
It's their
second
school
Friday. We
dates.
can't change it. Or we won't have a ceremony at URI. They are booked solid.
So,
So-
but are you suggesting though
That they
that,
come
yeah,
back.
you
I'm just-
graduate, but come back for 2 more days? I don't think that's good.
That's worse than what you just
I don't
talked
think it's a
about.
bad
I
thing
see
to
what you're
discuss.
saying. They still have 4 days. Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Thank you. That'd be even worse than adding days.
Probably.
Andrew would love to send that. That would be a fun message for everyone to deliver.
So
Well, so
There's been a motion and a second to approve this 2022-2023 school calendar. Is there any comments from the public with regards to the calendar? Yes, please come to the mic.
I'm not talking about the calendar.
Well, you have
Oh, I'm
to.
sorry.
I would just like to ask if people could use the microphone.
I was noticing you were having a hard time
Yeah, I'm trying
hearing.
to hear.
So-
Some people I can hear fine, and other people, I can't really make out your words.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll try to lean into the microphone. Okay, so there's been a motion and a second to approve this 2022-2023 school calendars. Are there any more questions or discussions with regards to the calendar? Okay, I'm taking it to a vote. Those in favor of the calendar as proposed? Any opposed? Abstentions or recusals? That was unanimous, except George left. So I don't know why. Okay, here we are. Budget time now.
Fiscal year 23 budget. This is an opportunity for adjustments to be made prior to the adoption of the budget. If adjustments are made, I'm requesting that the committee take a short recess so that Mr. Draper has an opportunity to recalculate the figures as needed.
Okay, we have Ms. Luzon. Yes.
I'm on the fence on a particular issue. I'm really on the
I know
fence.
you are.
I know the taxpayers, I wasn't at the omnibus, but there was requests of $500,000. And we just barely made the $500,000. And we try every year in our due diligence to make cuts. But we don't want to tear apart Charahoe at the same time. And I do realize the impact of having large class sizes at the elementary level, especially the lower levels. So I'm on the fence, and if someone can sell me on it, that's one thing. So after I'm done talking about this, and hopefully somebody will sell me or try to sell me. But I also did have a conversation with Gina last week. There are other ways to possibly address that. One could be TAs to help lessen the load for those teachers. I also talked to Ned, and I wanted the impact of a teacher, the cost, the impact to raising the budget 1.81 to 1 point whatever, maybe 9.7 or maybe 2. I don't know. I also wanted the impact to each town for 1, 2, and 3 positions, because there was discussion of possibly going up to 3. So that's all I got to say about that at this moment. And so,
We have another meeting before we have to.
No, this is it.
This is
there
it.
you go.
Just raise my hand because I'll just raise my hand because he's just talking.
I know he was
directly to
talking
me
right
this
at you.
point.
Through the chair.
Yes, so at the meeting before the budget hearing, we discussed the adding back some teaching positions. There was some feedback from parents, particularly strong in Richmond, and some feedback from Charleston as well, that they were worried about the larger class sizes. I think the appetite of the committee, the read that I got at that particular meeting, was that people were willing to add back into the budget in order to keep those class sizes a little bit smaller. I don't know that people still feel the same. And I am not a committee of one, so we vote as a group those of us that are still here vote as a group on the budget. So I will, if anybody wants to discuss that a little bit further as we talk about budget, I'm torn. I've been vocal about making cuts to the budget, and wondering if this budget was going to pass. I think it's important that everybody remembers that we're all taxpayers sitting up here too. So if your taxes go up, our taxes also go up, and it's not something that any of us really particularly enjoy. But as it stands right now, the budget, the overall increase is under 2%. And I don't know, actually, I can tell you, I do know that we're not going to keep the integrity of this school district if we start making drastic cuts. In the past, the way that we've done things is we have said to the superintendent, can I please see a list of cuts? And the superintendent would say, here's what I would say you need to cut. And it was referenced earlier about some draconian cuts that were made several years ago. And I think that's what we're looking at again. So, to quote Barry Ritchie, he often said the community will decide what its schools look like. And that's where we're at. And you'll decide with your vote. I'd like to keep the district in the position that it's in now. So I don't know that I'm going to have the support of adding those teachers. If anybody has a different opinion, I'd like to hear that too.
Don, would it be helpful if you heard numbers, or I could have Donna? Go ahead, Donna, and then you can share the numbers. Go ahead, Donna.
What's the question?
No. Go ahead. Because,
Okay.
yeah.
I support adding those back, and I'd like those positions back. I completely support that position, and I would like to make a motion to do that. So,
Do you want to hear what the cost will be?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Why don't we look? Okay.
So, no, let's make the motion. I think we can make
Yeah, I
the
think
motion.
we
Okay. We
motion,
can make the
discuss
motion,
it.
and then we can discuss it.
How many
And-
positions?
I would personally think 3 positions. I think go back to the original and not cut any positions. As long as I've worked on any of the Charahoe budgets, which is a number of years now, we've always talked about
Well, let's
not
make a
cutting
motion.
staff and programs. Okay?
Mhm.
And I'm not comfortable cutting staff to run the risk of making larger classrooms, especially at the lower grades. So I would say put it back to put those was it 3 positions that were cut out?
Not,
No.
there was, but I think that I just need to clarify a few things so that we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
One, and I did speak to all the Richmond parents, personally called them, that had concerns. So what, it sounds like the enrollment form that we use for staffing purposes and for purchase of supplies is the form that they're using to sort of think about grade structure, how many of each grade. So at Richmond and at Charleston, there's a special education classroom that is incorporated into those numbers. So moving forward, that's good knowledge for Ned and I to have to make that form a little clearer, because it'll say maybe there's, let's say, 22 in a classroom and there's actually 19. So that's why I just want to clarify something. So, and they understood it when I explained it. So the concerns at Richmond, kindergarten, we did cut, okay, because we went up to
Right.
5, not knowing, and Richmond has had history of having late enrollments the week of. So we sort of overshot that one and had more numbers that were really lessened, not increased. But the 5 classrooms made that class size 15 to 16 for this year. So back up to what the history shows, they'd be about 20 to 19 a class if we move to 4. That's based on history at Richmond. So that was a cut, the K. The other cut, first grade was 4. So those 5 Ks become 4 grade 1s. No change in first grade requested or by me. And that puts about 19 in every class in the first grade. No more, 19 in all classrooms in first grade at Richmond. In second grade, there was a cut because you had 5 second grades and you had 4 first grades feeding into it. So the cut came from second grade, and in essence, those also would be at 19. We kept third grade the same because you had the 5 grade 2s now feeding into the 5 grade 3s. We kept that the same, and that class size ranges about 18 to 17. And then the 4th grade, you had the request I believe I heard from the parents was add in a 4th grade because you have 5 third grades going into 4 fourth
Right.
grades, which put those numbers at 21 because we have students in Ms. McHugh's class that was originally filtered in. So that would put all the fourth grades at 21 if no one leaves or gets added in. That's based on our current numbers.
Sorry, clarifying question. I'm sorry. Do you mind?
No, go ahead.
Clarifying question. So in those fourth grade classrooms, are the special education students included in those numbers?
Not the numbers I just gave you.
Okay.
The 21, no. When you saw it originally on the enrollment form that's on the budget page, yes, because the form is used for a different purpose. But we're going to fix that so
Okay.
that
So you're
clear.
talking about 19 little bodies in a room.
In first grade there would be 19, and in fourth grade there would be 21.
Can you move on to Charleston now?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So Charlestown, I don't believe there was a cut at Charlestown at all.
No.
It came in where we have 3 Ks feeding into 3 grade 1s, and those numbers are at 21. So the request was, do we then add a grade 1?
Yes.
So
And,
that's where I wanted to, when we say cut.
and I asked you the other day, how many kids are counted in that number but are in a self-contained classroom, and how many kids are pulled out partially to go self-contained, then go
Yep.
back to first grade?
There's opportunities throughout the day where they can integrate, but for the majority of the day, they're not in one classroom. They're with the special ed teacher.
And how many is that?
I apologize.
And what does that
I
reduce
didn't know
it
you
to?
wanted the exact number, so I can get that from in the enrollment. Yes,
So-
but that's the exact, the number I gave you, the 21, that doesn't include the special ed classroom. Those are the actual general education seats.
So going back to my motion, but before I even do that, and you come up with a number. I mean, 1 would be great, 3 would be even better. If you do not need, when you hire teachers, if you don't have the enrollment per class, could 1 teacher hired for a first grade be transferred to another grade? I mean, you can have some flexibility in that. It's not like-
So for example, if let's say the increase happens, we could make some shifts prior based on the numbers.
Right. So I would make a motion to recommend how many? 2. Okay, 2. This little delegation over here is making a motion to add 2 staffing positions, teachers' positions back into the budget.
Go for it. You gonna say?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to add 2 staffing positions at the elementary level
At
back
the
into the.
elementary level,
back into the
definitely. At the
budget. I guess-
lower elementary even.
Okay. We have Ms. Liguori and then Mr. Day and then Mr. Luzon, and I will go around the table. Okay, Mr. Liguori, you're first.
So I just have a question about the annual turnover. Gina, you're new here, so maybe you don't know that, but is it possible to look back over a 10-year average and see per grade how many, is it a 1-to-1 each year? If there's 20 kindergartners, or there 20 first graders, and so on and so forth? And, over a 10-year time span, it could help maybe figure out what we really need. It's never perfect, but if we look back long enough, we can get a sense.
Because the class, the numbers, yes, but not the group number of grades. So you can find out, you would have to make sure you went back and said, okay, well, there was 88 students in 4 and 5, how many classrooms? Because that's where it becomes tricky it's not necessarily tracked that way. Now, we can track it that way if we want, moving forward based on the conversation, but it wasn't necessarily tracked just like that. So you'd have to go back to history of like old staffing agendas to find.
I don't think you need to look at the individual student movement because there's turnover every year. Some
So-
kids leave and some kids come, but
We actually saw it right now in all but one school. We lost some students, Charleston, Hope Valley, as well as Richmond. Only Ashway has gained a student since the fall, since we've worked on the numbers.
okay, thanks.
Mr. Day?
I think we're really headed down a slippery slope here. We need to pass a budget. Our contract, we're not in violation of any contracts as far as class size goes. We have some exceptional teachers here. They've done it before. Last contract, last budget was passed by 77 voters. Last contract, last budget, we didn't have the citizens that are as vocal prior to our budget hearings as they are now. If we don't pass this budget the first time, I don't think there's anybody at this table, except for Donna and I, that have gone through numerous attempts to pass the budget.
Yeah.
It's not going to be very easy on these individuals right here to find ways to find money somewhere along the line that we can turn around and get a budget that will go favorably in the voters thing. And then worst case scenario, we go to what we're living with this year. Can we live with what we have this year, next year? I don't think so. So before you let your heart overrule your head, I think you really need to think that we've done the best that we have done so far, and put out to the voters that are thinking that we are not being receptive to them, and hope that they believe us and have trust and faith in us to do the best we can. I know that we have the flexibility of moving items around here and there. We've got some items here tonight. So if we need to put a class in there, I'm sure that we can steal a little bit from Peter and a little bit from Paul and Joe and Sally and Ann and anybody else to pay for a teacher. But to turn around and put money into a budget for 2 teachers that we may or may not need, according to what Donna what the superintendent said, is just slapping the face of the voters in this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luzon, and then Ms. McAllister. Ms. Luzon.
Um,
floor.
I asked Ned at a previous meeting, I don't know if it was the last one or the one before that, but it really doesn't matter, if would it hurt next year if we had to add, if we didn't accommodate this, would it hurt if we had to add a couple of positions? And he said yes. Now, I don't know what that means. All I know is it's going to hurt. John, I do have a question for you. What does the contract state in reference to if we exceed certain numbers after certain dates?
My recollection, and I haven't looked at that provision because frankly, you've had such low class sizes for the last few years, you say you have to add class, that you would have to open up new classes.
Excuse me?
You would have to open up new classes.
Or if more kids are added on after October 1st, we just pay an additional stipend for the teacher?
That's another possibility, but again, it depends on what exactly is the number of additional kids. I mean,
But we've done that in the past.
Yeah, I'm aware of another district, however, that the additional class number of students that the teacher was paid stipend for was 12 in the first grade.
Yep.
And she was very happy to get the money with about 40 kids in her class. That's not education.
I don't want that.
No.
So, and then my last point is this. Any other year, I would 100% wholeheartedly agree with what Bill just said. And I partially agree with him now. But these are different times. These little kids, there's mores, there's norms, there's things that they haven't learned. Wearing a mask, not going to school as often as they used to. And, they don't know what side of the hall to walk down. I mean, we got to rein that in. So, well, all I can say is we're all going to vote. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McAllister, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's 19 in the Richmond first grade, if that's what the numbers
Yeah,
are,
currently, yeah.
I can see that you could always move a teacher assistant over there. And they had small kindergarten classes. They had 15. So they had a better chance at learning with 15 in the class than you would with 20, 21. The first grade in Charlestown had a large kindergarten class. And so we're saying a large first grade class too. I have real difficulty thinking that's a good scenario for those kids. But then you also have to look at Ashaway, who had the same numbers. So but you couldn't make 3 classes out of that. Then you'd be down to, 43 kids in 3 classes. It'd be very small. Yeah. But I'm very uncomfortable with those numbers in first grade in Charlestown. It's not just because I'm in Charlestown, but I've been in a first grade classroom and I know how hard it is teaching those kids with those numbers. So I'm kind of in the flux here between 1 or 2 teachers. I'm really worried about the budget.
And I double checked Charleston's special ed class, it's 5 students.
5
5 students in the special ed classroom at Charleston.
that are
So
going to be first graders.
Oh, no, not 5 that.
Oh, all right.
Total.
All right.
Okay, we have Ms. Juicy and then Ms. Adonis and then a gentleman. Oh, you're just standing? Okay, I was going to thank you for being patient, but thank you. Okay, Catherine.
So I'm gonna sound contradictory because I'm the one who brought this up.
No, this is what.
But, I've been asked by members of the public to make sure I'm looking at it from both sides. So the recommendations that you put forth initially in this budget were to keep the teachers the way they were without adding the 3 positions that the motion is suggesting, right?
Two.
I'm sorry, 2 positions the motion is suggesting. So your budget presented to us did not have those
Correct.
initially, right?
Correct.
And you crafted that budget based on recommendations from your building leaders.
Correct.
Okay. So this is where I am torn as well. There is a reality that there is a budget that needs to be passed. I understand that, and I've been around a while paying attention, and I do understand that. Yeah, I was here and paying attention when that didn't pass, and there were some major repercussions to the school district because of it. So can you said, Gina, before that somebody mentioned that there were opportunities to support those teachers. 21 little kids in a classroom is a lot of little kids in a classroom. It just is. Let's call it for what it is. But somebody had mentioned there might be an opportunity to support those teachers without adding another classroom.
Correct. They're actually currently, there even some teacher assistant positions where the principals have the opportunity to shift based on need.
Okay. And then,
Or add if necessary.
okay. And you had conversations with the Richmond parents who had been vocal about adding those positions. Can you share a little bit about their feelings after you spoke to them?
None of them, they said that they understood now with the numbers. I think realizing that Ms. McHugh's class was built in, that was something that they weren't clear about, so that clarification helped. They understand that we watch the numbers. Like, it's not something that we just do for budget. We continue to monitor. We actually added a classroom last year after the budget based on numbers in the K for Charleston, because it was beyond the history. And when we tracked those parents, it was because they held them back a year because of COVID, not knowing, and some additional homeschool returned. Based on what we're seeing right now or hearing, that number isn't what's coming in next year. We're sort of getting back to normal, if you will. But when I spoke to the Richmond parents, I think you'll find any parent would want their classroom size down as low as possible.
Yeah.
And I think this is a community that values that, and there's a lot to value in that. I think especially at a time we're in a pandemic, which is why I talked to the leaders when we looked at Ashaway, and Mr. Scannapieco says, no, we're good, at 22. That's why I need to take their input to see, what does it look like? It's not a grade structure is not a perfect science.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Did anybody? Okay.
Adonis.
Then Ms. Adonis. Thank you, Adonis.
I would lead with my values on this particular position, and that is a smaller classroom size. I would be interested to learn a little bit more about the support that we could give teachers outside of adding these positions. I would be interested in having a discussion about what that would look like in a very specific way, outlining what those support services would be, how they're used, when they're used, just kind of learning the mechanics of the situation. But I would vote in favor of having these two positions added back to the budget.
Thank you.
So Ned, just so we understand, what would the impact of, and have Gina give you the appropriate number of teaching assistants necessary to accommodate the need for us versus teachers?
It depends on if we could retask existing TAs. If that's something we were able to do, it could be something we absorb. Equally and alternatively, Charlestown is a good example of, we had a budget plan in mind. We came into this year and we had to adjust that plan. And that's normal. That is normal. I'd say the cost on a TA, I'd have to take a look at the specifics, but depending on where the person came in the 40 range, 40 to 50 range.
And that's not insurance either. What's the
No,
total?
that's what, that would
That's-
be with
That's with
That's
insurance.
with fringe.
Okay, so it's 80 for a teacher you had suggested versus 40 for a TA.
Yeah, between 40 and
80,000.
50.
Okay.
Yes, please. Could you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Sylvia. I'm a resident of Hopkinton. I've heard numbers on Charlestown, Richmond, and Ashway. We haven't heard numbers on Hope Valley at all.
I haven't.
So just, it sounds like Richmond's the only one that's had class sizes less than 22, 21? What did you say the numbers were in Charlestown? I thought you said
So
that.
overall, all the schools are below the, most classrooms at Richmond, all but grade 4 are underneath 21. Have smaller classes than 21. Hope Valley, there is no class larger than 20, where, they range between 19, 17, 18. Charlestown, like Richmond, has one class that has 21 grade level, which is first grade. Every other classroom is at 17 or 16 overall. And Ashway actually has the larger sizes, where there's 3 classes at 22, one at 21, a few at 20, and the rest at 18 or 19.
And without the added 2 positions, that puts the Richmond classes at 21?
The 4th grade would remain at 21 without adding a position.
I don't know. Just from my point of view, it sounds like they're all pretty much even. It doesn't really sound like it sounds like if you add those positions, then that's going to be putting Richmond at a much lower class size and therefore creating a discrepancy between the 3 towns. And that's just my observation by what I'm hearing. And then that doesn't really seem fair to be dividing that cost between the 3 towns if it's just adding positions to Richmond, and then they're going to have much smaller class sizes.
Thank you.
16 to 17.
So to your question on the superintendent, the Richmond classes would be 16 to 17 per in the class. So you have a point there. Just 1 second, Goldie, because we have a couple of school committee members, and then you can have a turn. Good, Donna, and then Mr. Labori, and then we'll have.
Yeah, I'm wondering, and since I made the motion, maybe I could amend the motion or rescind the motion, but I wonder if we could just put in $80,000 for staffing to allow flexibility to either, at your discretion, either hire a teacher, and it doesn't have to be for any one school. Because when you hire new teachers, you can have some flexibility. But hire 80,000 sounds like would allow you 1 teacher or 2 TAs if you needed that. So I'm going to amend my motion. Does that make sense?
No, wait.
I'm gonna, yeah.
Wait,
No,
so
it
no,
would
not
not
yet.
be amend. You would have to
Rescind
rescind
it.
it.
I'm gonna
because You
rescind
can't
it.
amend something. and
So
that
If that makes more sense.
You're rescinding it?
I'm rescinding it.
And I rescind my second.
Okay.
So
Just
my motion will be now to,
Before you do, can I just ask a question?
yeah, go ahead.
Why don't
Okay.
we wrap up discussion
Yes.
on that before we make another
Okay.
motion? How's that?
Okay.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good.
Ms. Luzon, and then, did you?
No, Gary is.
Yeah, and Mr. Legori. Okay, Ms. Luzon,
Ned,
and then Mr. Day.
do we have enough wiggle room without putting anything in the budget for $80,000?
A month ago, I
Drama
was,
club. Let's take it from the drama.
Yeah.
Yeah, pay for that expertise.
a month ago, I would have been more comfortable to say, there's levers we can pull to
You got the oil
pull things
bill.
into focus. As you can see later on in the meeting, we've got a transfer for $80,000. That won't even cover all our additional oil costs.
The oil costs.
So I think the budget is built is $3 a gallon for oil. I'll just use that as an example. Right now, it's north of $4.50.
And
We don't know how long that's going to last, but we consume about 150,000 gallons. So you can see pretty quickly the math on $1 a gallon. That would chew up all of what we're talking about and more. So for that reason, financially, I'm very uncomfortable.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Legori, and then Mr. Day.
Yeah, I think the last speaker's comments
Mm-hmm.
are important to hear. If I heard the numbers correctly, in Charlestown, adding a teacher there would bring those numbers down to 15 or 16.
16 to 17.
Yeah. And so, it's a unique situation here because we have multiple towns that vote with each having their own school. And if you add two, that leaves somebody out.
Yeah.
Right? Or more than somebody. So I don't know how to resolve that. And part of me is thinking, can we afford the luxury of going to 15 or 16? Right? And right now I think in our budget, no. But another part of me thinks, can we afford not to from an educating our students standpoint? It creates a real dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're under the limit of whatever the maximum is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's a good thing. But I do think overall our numbers are pretty good across the schools, with an exception here and there. So I think I like where Donna's going now much better than the original motion. I think moving forward, it's always probably good to have some flexibility as the numbers fluctuate early in the year. So Donna, thank you.
You're welcome, anytime.
Goldie Williams, Richmond. When my kids went
Oh, wait
to
a minute,
school.
I'm sorry, Miss Williams, my fault, I apologize. Mr. Day was ahead of you.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Day, sorry,
Yes,
Mr. Day.
getting back to flexibility here, as Ned mentioned, we have a transfer sheet here. Just bring it out here to everybody's information. Approximately in the first 4 items, we're transferring approximately a little over $16,000 to cover other expenses here in the school. The last one is the big one. We transferred 2 items for a total of $80,000 to cover oil costs. So we do have the flexibility in this budget to turn around and cover the cost of an extra teacher somewhere along the line by taking a little bit out of this, a little bit out of that, as opposed to nailing the taxpayers in this district and taking a chance that this budget is not going to pass the first time around. Keep that in mind, committee members. We've transferred almost $100,000 tonight to cover other expenses that weren't anticipated. We've always had that ability to do that. Sometimes it would reduce our fund balance to a very, very low threshold, but we've been able to do it. And I'm not trying to kick the problem down the road, but the people are fed up. They can't afford to buy gas, and we want to turn around and give them the perception that we're not trying to listen to them and keep this budget down, and we're worried about class sizes when the union and the administrators of the buildings are saying they don't have a problem with it. 77 votes last year. Where you going to pick up them votes this year? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Day.
Goldie Williams, Richmond, Rhode Island. I'm picking up with Mr. Day. We have to pay for food, for oil that I just paid $1,000 for my house. We just paid gas $35. That's twice in 1 week. We need to cut the budget. When my sons went to school, they were 21 to 25 in their class, in their elementary school, and I'm talking Kingston Hill, and they're very smart. And my youngest is a grade ahead in his math that he wasn't allowed to do it here. So he went to the Met where they let him do it. Now, when he went to CCRI, they allow him to skip the algebra, and then he went to pre-calculus. So it doesn't matter the size. My sons made out fine, 21 to 25 in their class. Thank you. And also maybe lower the heat in the school because it's very hot in the schools. Maybe you could save money that way.
Thank you.
So
Yes,
So,
Ms.
let
Chambers.
me rescind, is that the right?
Yeah,
word?
we already did that.
Oh, I did that.
Yeah, you
I
did that. You and
that.
Mr.
Okay.
Hassan did that.
And I would like to make the motion to add $80,000 despite the just logical reasons not to. I would like to allow $80,000 to be put back into the budget at the discretion of the administration to be used for staffing. To be used for staffing either for a teacher or TAs or whatever the needs are to support the classrooms in the event that it goes over 20 kids per class.
I second that. Okay, just one concern now. You put this in, it's got to be earmarked because of the way your motion is. It definitely has to go to staffing regardless of if it's needed or not for
I
staffing.
want it to
Okay.
go to staffing.
Okay,
Okay, with the understanding
Okay.
that it can be used for whatever staffing needs the administration thinks it needs to be applied to.
And there's been a motion by Ms. Chambers and a second by Ms. McAllister to add $80,000 into the budget for staffing use only. Okay, I'm going to open that for discussion. Anybody have any questions or comments with regards to that? Yes, sir.
I have just a clarification on the motion.
Sure.
The motion as she stated it was to use that TA for staffing anytime a class size went over 20. That's what she stated. Is that not the motion?
John can read it back. Yes, read it back.
I don't have her number. I didn't hear the 20.
Did you mention the class size?
I did because I was trying to.
And the only reason I bring it up, and you said the number 20. I'm not saying yes or no to it. The only reason I bring it up is because the class sizes in Ashaway were already over 20. In
Right.
Richmond, they're already over 20.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So-
some in Charleston are over 20.
Charlestown's over 20.
Right.
So I just that's
Good
all.
point.
Just a
Is
clarification.
it Tyler?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Good point.
Just the way that motion is stated, that TA could be put into Ashaway. That TA could be put into Richmond when it sounds like Richmond is where you guys are, or where the parents are asking for it
Well,
mostly. So that's all.
No, I appreciate that. I really would like to
Say something.
even state it further to be
Maybe
used
my
in the
budget.
lower levels, in the lower classes and not as needed. So let me just amend the motion then,
Or take it back.
take it back and go ahead,
Rescind.
rescind your second.
rescinded too.
Okay, I'm going to amend the motion
No,
to
make a motion.
make a motion to allow $80,000 for the purpose of staffing flexibility in the lower levels at the administration's discretion. Does that work?
I have a clarification. Is lower level elementary or is it?
Elementary. So that includes the kindergarten, that includes the first grade, the second grades, the places where we need to contain the numbers in those classes. Okay. So,
It's very, I'm sorry, it's just so general. I'm a little, I know your intention is great, but like Gina just said, does that include third and fourth grade? So, I guess.
if elementary
Yes.
level.
Okay, elementary.
Because I did say lower level.
Okay,
So elementary
elementary.
level.
Sorry, Donna. Abby. And so we had a second on that elementary level, Linda McAllister. Okay. Now we can bring that to discussion, open for discussion or questions on that. I have a question. Is that going to be difficult?
So the interesting thing is
I'm sorry, I
I
just-
definitely would need to speak to Mr. Scanapico. Right now, I mean, he just got a new student in grade 2, moving that, in grade 1, adding that to 22. So if the intent, to Mr. Chapman's point, if the intent is Richmond, then I think the generality is concerning.
Good, that's what I'm saying.
Because
I'm not intending, I didn't say.
No, what
No,
I'm saying is
You're Go ahead, I'm sorry.
there very well might be a need for an assistant at Ashaway based on the fact that the numbers are at 22 now,
that's what I
because we
would
just
like
got
you
a
to
new
be able
student
to do.
added.
Yeah.
And I don't want the intent and anyone to hear the conversation and think
Okay.
that there's an automatic move into a Richmond or a Charleston class, because that may not actually be the case.
It's district-wide.
It could
Okay?
be correct.
It's your flexibility for the district to be able to support whatever class you feel needs that extra staffing.
Ms. Suzanne?
So, from what you're saying, in theory, yeah, we may have talked about Richmond and Charleston. And maybe we would still like that to be addressed. But the way it's worded, if Ashaway jumps up to 23, 24 kids in a class, evidently they would need the attention more than the other schools.
Right.
And that
I
is
don't
what-
have a problem with that.
That is what Mrs. Scanapico would prefer if that happened. Knowing, after speaking with all the building leaders about their classroom.
And that would be the intention of my motion.
Okay.
Or any need that you see.
And even in theory, we may not ever use the $80,000.
Right.
But which would go back to the fund balance based on.
That's
the
it.
Right, right. And that's a good thing.
Overtax the.
Polly Hopkins, Hopkinton. I see Mr. Day over there, and I think I'm thinking the same thing. Remember when we had double sessions? How I don't know if any of you were here then. I know Mr. Day was. I know our high school and junior high overlapped, and there was a way, and we've come such a long way since then. But a lot of the people in this community are here because they love this community, but they also went to Charahoe when there were double sessions. So given that history and the perspective of, we didn't have football, we didn't have, I watched the middle school be built. We really had tight budgets back then. And, everything's changed, prices go up, places get bigger, but there seems to be just this blooming trend year after year. And we also remember how we began and started. So I kind of feel for Mr. Day. I know where it looks like he's holding his head, and from that position, you can tell me I'm wrong, but I think a lot of us in the community remember those days too. So just to give you a little insight to that.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Welcome to come to the mic. Okay, well, there's been a motion and there's been a second on that motion. So I'll take it to a vote. Those in favor of the motion?
I can't see.
Okay, it's,
Okay.
okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5. Those against? There's 3 of us, 4 of us. Any abstentions or recusals?
1, 2, 3 people out.
Yeah. The motion passes with a vote of 5-4. Thank you very much. That was a great conversation.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
To accommodate what else is on that agenda item, I make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
thank you.
Second.
Just so Mr. Draper has a minute
Correct.
to adjust the budget, because we have to approve it tonight. Yeah, okay, thank you.
We had a vote on it.
We had to vote on it tonight, yeah.
No, I
Oh,
mean,
no,
we.
5
Oh,
recess.
5-minute recess. Okay, those in favor of the 5-minute recess, sorry. Okay, that passes.
Not in favor?
No.
Yeah,
No,
you
he's not.
voted- You voted against.
I want to get out of here.
You don't want to hear the
Are you ready?
I
differences?
just,
I don't want to
We can come back to order. Mr. Draper has the numbers for us to consider for the budget. Yeah, no. Yeah, because you have to read it. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Draper.
All right.
We still have a reduction, right? Even if we add that.
Correct.
Right.
So there are no adjustments made. The reductions to date will be 420, 164, which leaves the budget at 55,773,405, an increase of 1.95%. Impact to each of the towns as follows. Charlestown, 2.74%. Richmond, 2.19%. Hopkinton, 1.2%.
So do you want a motion for?
Actually, I'll
Gina,
read it.
Gina's going to read with the new,
I'll
part.
just say it one more time. Based on the adjustments made this evening, which are a reduction, total reduction for the budget is $420,164, which now leaves the budget at $55,773,405, a 1.95% increase. Impact to Charlestown, 2.74%. Impact to Richmond, 2.19%. Impact to Hopkinton, 1.2%. I'm asking that you approve as read.
Right.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion by Mr. Luzon and a second by Ms. Juicy to approve the FY23 budget as just so stated and read. I'm not going to repeat all that, but stated by Superintendent Picard in the total amount of $55,773. I'm sorry, so $55,770,405 with a reduction of $420,164. Sorry. Do we need any more discussion on that? There's been a motion, a second. Yes, sir.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
Mr. Draper, will you put revised spreadsheets on the website?
I will.
That'll be helpful for the towns too, to see that, yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna take that to a vote. Those in favor of this new budget? Thank you. Those opposed? I don't think, Mr. Day is opposing, and there's no recusals or abstentions. Everybody's accounted for. Thank you very much. And so the FY23 budget has been adopted by the school committee. Yeah, consent agenda items, does any of these need to be pulled? Yes.
A3
A3, that's the minutes.
and G2.
Just A3 and G2?
Correct.
A3 and G2. Golf cart bid. Okay. Any other pulls from other members? No, guess not.
So at this time, Chair, make a motion to move the remainder.
Second. Can I have a second, please?
Catherine.
Oh, Catherine, I'm sorry, it's Catherine. Okay, so those in favor? Any oppositions, recusal, abstentions? Nope, so those passed. So now we go to A3.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
at this time, I make a motion to approve A3 public budget hearing / meeting minutes of March 1st, 2022.
Second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second to approve the public budget hearing meeting minutes of March 1st, 2022. Since it was pulled, is any discussion or questions about those minutes? No? Okay, those in favor? Anybody against? Abstentions? Thank you. Abstentions.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
make a motion to approve G2.
Second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second to approve golf cart bid G2. Yes, sir. There's a question.
Discussion?
Yeah, discussion, sir.
Ned, anyway, I'm not telling you not to, because the motion basically is we approving it, but if you could just hold off a little, like a month, or at least till the next meeting, and I'll explain why. I'm trying to find it. Is there any way we can at least compare costs for something a little bit bigger that could possibly carry a stretcher?
We can ask about it.
Yeah, it may cost more than we.
I assume it's gonna cost more, but I mean, I don't know. Because
Yeah,
putting a big football player on the back really just doesn't cut it.
I didn't examine the specs to see what, specific, I know that was in mind for moving somebody with an injury, but, I didn't look closely at that.
I mean, they do have a variety of products, and I know it's from soup to nuts as far as cost.
Yeah, I'll check with Mike on that and see what.
Just throwing it out there, if it's not feasible, I do understand. Or maybe they have a golf cart that you can do that with.
What are we voting on?
It's for the utility cart.
Okay. So do you want to table that, or because we made a motion to accept the bid?
I understand that.
Okay.
I do understand, and if they deem it not, they'll bring it back to us.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify and make sure if we were doing what you wanted us to do. Okay, so there's been a motion and a second to
Approve G2.
approve G2. Thank you, Mr. Luzon. Any other discussion on that? No? Those in favor? So that's unanimous. Thank you very much. That passed. And now we're on to reports.
Okay. Subcommittee reports, health and wellness, actually met today at 4:00 in the high school library. It was one of our largest attended meetings, which was wonderful. And closed with the draft minutes of their meeting on December 7th, 2021. We have updating K registration is starting next week. It opens on March 14th. We have centralized registration and the
I was just going to ask you that. Go ahead.
Oh,
Finish.
sorry. And the transfer to ensure it is electronic is complete. Parents can request paper copies. However, digital registration allows our families not have to worry about waiting to get to a school to register their child or summer staffing that may limit the ability to access staff for registration. Messaging regarding K registration is going to be sent out to families this week on all the principals' updates, as well as to the 3 towns to be able to share it on their sites. We will also be providing flyers to Head Starts and pre-K programs across the 3 towns. We have some COVID updates. As you know, masks are now recommended, not required. While a majority of individuals seem to be choosing not to wear a mask, we have students and staff at all levels who are continuing to wear them. Principals are moving forward with planning spring events as they have done pre-COVID, with ensuring they are always thinking about safety and mitigation strategies as needed. We have upcoming events. The Charahoe Middle School on March 9th, Student Council Hat Day for St. Jude's. On March 10th, Ashaway PTO Family Takeout Dinner Night at the Lucky House. March 11th, secondary progress reports issued for the 3rd quarter. We also have March 14th is our State PD Day. So it will be an asynchronous learning day for students. And March 18th, elementary end of grading period, 2nd trimester.
Okay, now we're on to the school committee requests for future agenda items or legal opinions. We got 2, Ms. Chambers and then Mr. Day. Ms. Chambers?
Yeah, I would like to put on the agenda the amount of time, a discussion on the amount of time and a vote on the amount of time that we allow for public comment.
The recommendation that John made as far as
Yes,
getting the, okay.
Exactly.
Wait a
Okay,
minute.
hold on.
No, you'll have to put either on the policy or the rules of conduct to be amended.
Right.
So you may want to do, under policy, put both in,
Yes,
and one would need to
exactly.
be amended,
Thank
okay?
you, Donna, for keeping me on.
And
the
one
script.
would be
Yes.
sunsetted.
Right, so we're going to put it under policy
Right.
on our
Sounds
next
good.
meeting. Thank
Right.
you.
That's what I wanted.
Okay,
As
Mr.
I
Day?
understood Mr. Anderson, he said that would have to be a policy too.
They're both policies, correct?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that wasn't what she requested. That we had that, they put that in the policy either, did she?
That can be just put in the policy book. He's suggesting it's always been in the school committee policy
Yeah.
book, but it's not in,
So it's gonna be added to the school.
it can
Correct.
be added to the school
Okay, all right, I
policy.
just wanna
She's
make sure.
right.
Yeah, that can happen too.
I like that idea. Yeah.
Right,
It
right.
was always in the school policy book, but now that everything's online, that just did not get put online with the school policy.
Right, it's on the school committee site.
But it's
Right.
on the school committee policy book,
Yeah,
But it should be in,
not public.
not public.
not public,
right.
but it should be, and that's what we're gonna do. Did you have something else, Mr. Day?
I had requested discussion on the bullying. As I see a concern at the middle school there,
Okay,
last school committee meeting.
is that under
Do
student?
you want Mr. Zennian present?
I would like someone to explain
Sure.
why that's the only building in the district that seems to have a concern for bullying. The numbers that don't match up with the rest of the buildings, as last month's report, the state report.
Business item.
No, okay.
And the second thing is I talked to Mr. Anderson before he left, and just want to tell you what he's going to bring back here. On June 17th, 2016, Charter Act was amended that states that we will have anywhere from 10 to 14 members of our school committee.
We were just talking about that.
And he's going to research that and find out how we're going to determine that, because the Charter Act specifically tells you how to do it. But I've read it 3 or 4 times, and it's on the census. It's to me, a lawyer and a mathematician probably got to let us know. But I mean, we need to let the citizens know that we might be having 2 less or 2 more than the 12 that we have here now. And June is the time you'll have to be declaring your candidacy to run for school committee. So it's something that I'm sure a lot of people in the community didn't realize, but this is the
Bill, give those 10 to 14.
pardon?
10 to 14? I didn't get the
Oh, yeah,
second part of it.
Yeah, minimum of 10,
all-
up to 14.
Up to
Yeah,
14,
you
thank
gotta-
you.
you
I
gotta
just wanted
do
to
this, you
clarify.
gotta
I don't know
do
this,
that.
yeah, something.
So that we could lose a couple of members, or depending on how the mathematicians figure it out, or we could gain 2 more members, which would be a lot of fun. 14 of us sitting around, we can't get anything done with 12, so I don't know how we're gonna do it with 14.
We have 14 of us.
Interesting.
Thank you.
You're
I just-
welcome.
Mr. Anderson said he would get back to us on that, so don't be surprised when he comes back with what he comes back with.
Right, so we might be able to, depending on the time, we might be able to get it on the next agenda.
I noted it just.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
No more requests?
No more requests?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. There's been a motion by Ms. Luzon, a second by Ms. Juicy to adjourn. Those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Done. The recusal form I filled out, that was for the whole
Thank
season,
you.
right?
I think we